Hi, friends, and welcome to a new video. Today I wanted to talk about the steps I take when I paint a face. There are already so many videos and in-depth tutorials about how to copy an image perfectly that I wanted to focus on the nuances in paintings and the things to keep in mind. So this is more like a checklist rather than a tutorial. So, let's get started. Step 1, outlines. This is a bit controversial because you'll hear many artists and people in general say that it's cheating to use charcoal transfers and projectors or even to paint over an image. But to that I say, who cares? It's not gonna automatically make your work better if you do what the old masters did and use paint and a brush to set up their outlines of proportions. But I bet you, if Da Vinci was here today, he would use a projector. My favorite method of getting an outline down is through a charcoal transfer, mainly because I don't have a lot of time to paint because of school, and it's quick, easy, and most importantly, it's very accurate. But the thing you have to remember when doing a charcoal transfer is it won't do the work for you. You still have to know how to recognize value and recreate form and mix colors and render facial features correctly. And if you don't know how to do these things, your art will suffer. It won't make it better no matter how many times you do a charcoal transfer. The outline also depends on the type of art you do. A charcoal transfer won't be much help when it comes to a landscape or a painting that's all about flow and movement because it's too rigid. It won't benefit the painting, so work smart, not hard, but also do what works best for you. If you love your art when you paint over a photograph, then do that. But don't lie about it, because it favors no one. And the last thing to keep in mind before we even pick up a paintbrush is to tint your painting ground. Many artists like to use a wash of burnt umber or some sort of brown mixture and cover the canvas completely. This is done to make it easier to recognize values, but I have found this to be too distracting when it comes to mixing colors accurately, because everything feels too cold next to this very warm brown. And I also find that it ruins vibrancy, because painting on a white surface gives a certain luminance to everything you do. So I much prefer to tint my gesso ground with a neutral gray color. The way I do this is by just using a neutral gray acrylic paint, adding that to my gesso, and painting that over my canvas. I find this to be much better because it doesn't hurt the vibrancy because it's in the gesso rather than in the paint, and it makes it much easier to recognize values correctly, and it also doesn't hurt my color mixing because it's on a neutral gray rather than a very warm red. Step 2. Start with the eyes. If you can't tell already, I'm an art teacher's worst nightmare because most artists will tell you never start with the eyes, but I find that very stupid. Eyes are always going to be the focal point no matter what you do. The gaze will always be the first thing people look at, so why paint it when you're tired and you mildly hate the painting and you kind of just want to be done and start with your next project? I might be a little biased because painting eyes is my favorite thing to do, but it's in every artist's best interest to paint the eyes of your portrait to the best of your ability because that's what's going to grab the viewer's attention. And we always have the most energy and inspiration at the beginning of the painting process, so why wait? Then I like to do what I call caterpillaring. I just keep painting around the eyes until I'm close enough to the nose to paint that, and then I repeat this process for the lips and the neck and the hair. I much prefer painting things to an almost finished degree before continuing onwards. It just feels more organized and helps me like the painting. Because if I feel like the painting looks bad, which if you do the traditional route of painting everything at once and then fixing up until you're happy, a painting will go through what we call an ugly phase. And yes, my paintings do have an ugly phase, but it's not to such a large extent. And I find this is just better for my mental health and also for my overall process of painting. Because if I find a painting ugly, I'm gonna stop painting it and just move on, which isn't a great habit to have, but we have to work with what we have. So, my advice is to always just paint like how a caterpillar eats leaves. Step 3. The background. Our eyes have a limited field of vision, and to be honest, many people don't care about the ears and eyes and things that aren't directly related to the subject matter. So why waste 20 hours making those things perfect when the only person who's ever gonna notice those things are you? So I consider these things part of my background. Now, again, most old school artists will preach always do the background first. And sometimes this can be the best option when it comes to having to do gradients and complicated shapes. But for my style of abstractions, I need to have a subject matter in place before I can paint the background. The reason I like putting these abstractions and what many people would consider ugly, unnecessary details is because it distracts the eye and forces the brain to move around the painting, as well as creating something interesting to look at. There's a reason movies exist, and it's because real life is boring. So what's the point of a boring background? But that's just my feelings. If you want to paint a single color, go for it. If you want to do abstractions like Alpai Efe or Daria Kali, that's great too, because there are no rules to art. Always remember that. Do what makes you love the painting. Yes, if you have to pay the bills, then paint the cute anime girls that we all know sell the best. But even then, make sure your work is something that you could be proud of. Art is all about expression, so don't express something you don't like. All this will do is create resentment for your craft. Sorry, that was a bit off topic, but I think that's something that's worthwhile to discuss. So feel free to tell me your opinions. If art is for money, if art is for fun, or if art is for commentary on society. Step 4. Retouches. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You know how I said I paint things to an almost finished extent? Well, that's not what I'm thinking when I paint. When I paint, I'm thinking about painting this section until I'm completely happy with it. But the problem with my method is there's no real way of seeing if it will come together until the end. So that's why I take this step to fix things that don't fit together or no longer make sense in context. It's very important to be fearless when you paint. If you've painted it once, you can paint it a million times over. But if you're not satisfied with an area, there is no fixing it with your mind. I only do this step after taking a few days or even weeks away from a painting, so I'm no longer seeing it with bias. Something that is very important to take into consideration is edges. Lately I've been blurring the edges of things using a lot of texture to distract the eye. And when I say things, I mean facial expressions, the edges of eyes and irises and lips, and as well as the jawline and bones and many different things. Here's a work in process that uses this technique. So friends, that brings us to the end of this video. Both of these paintings are for sale, so feel free to email me or DM me on Instagram if you're interested. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll try to post when I can, but I'm in my final year of school and it's quite hectic, so no promises. But thank you for watching this video, especially if you've come this far. It would mean the world to me if you could hit like and subscribe. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.